Hi, thank you for inviting us to participate in this webinar session. We would like to share our important findings and recommendations from the survey on the perception of stakeholders with regards to the regulation of private primary care in Malaysia. We observe mixed perceptions, both positive and negative, towards private sector regulation. And this video, I would like to highlight on 7 items. And the first is on regulatory framework, second on system fragmentation, third on resources, fourth on the knowledge, data, innovation, and others. The last two will be shared by Dr. Rima. For the first one on the regulatory framework, MOH is the main regulator for private healthcare sector in Malaysia. Majority agree that we have comprehensive laws and regulations to regulate the facilities, services, and providers for private primary care. Private providers perceive enforcement activities as micromanaging and unfairly regulating them. They have limited engagement in providing input to promulgate laws and regulations. And they would like to see more engagement and participation with stakeholders in establishing laws and regulations in the future. Second one, on the system fragmentation, there are overlapping of regulatory actor roles and responsibilities, which increase fragmentation and inefficiency in the system. For instance, various regulatory bodies have duplicative roles and responsibility and often create additional burdens for providers and facilities. And some of the enforcement office activities are not well coordinated to address duplications or inconsistencies. For example, local authorities might specify certain requirements for the building or clinic that differ from requirements imposed by national level actors. And it has been suggested to have a single regulatory body and compliance unit, as well as separate role for regulatory and enforcement agency. As for the resources, this is one of our major limitation for Malaysia, is the limitation in the resources to carry out enforcement, both financial and human resources, affecting effective regulation. The federal government includes a line item for regulation in MOH budget, but the allocation is usually inadequate for enforcement activities needed nationwide. And recently, the Malaysian Medical Council, a statutory body, was given full autonomy and expected to raise sufficient funds through fees to meet their operational expenses with little supplemental funding from the government. An alternative mechanism and sources of fundings should be explored to be able to provide required resources. The fourth one is on knowledge and competency. Major stakeholders agree that there is still an issue on the competency of the enforcement officers and on the knowledge of the private providers regarding regulations. And some of the requirements of the regulations are subjectively interpreted by enforcement officers, and the interpretations are inconsistent between central and state regulators. And there is a need to enhance competency of enforcement officers and continuously increase knowledge among the providers on laws and regulations. On data, we also face challenges with the availability of timely and high quality data from the private sector, particularly on the pricing, the capacity and range of services provided by them. Thus, MOH must use centralized and integrated IT system across both sectors for effective and efficient monitoring and evaluation.